Good morning, good evening. This is your favorite podcast. Will and Al know absolutely nothing. This is my co-host, Grace. Right now, our co-host, Will, is on sabbatical. And today we have a very, very special guest, a very old and dear friend, the amazing Len May.
Thank you. Thank you. Old as in like a soul, not necessarily age right away, right?
Exactly.
Both. Old.
Yeah, of course. How are you, buddy?
I'm great, man.
You know, it was so good to reconnect with you the other day.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. It's so great because on and off. This is what happens with friendships. Like people grow and they move in different places physically, but you still there are people in my life who I'm super grateful for, where I can just connect and have a conversation, even if we didn't speak for 10 years. And you're definitely one of those. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. So for our audience members, our listeners that aren't familiar with you, what you do, who you are, maybe you could share your story, maybe even how we met, how we know each other.
Yeah, sure. So I was born in Lithuania, and I immigrated to the U.S. with my parents when I was 6 years old, and it's like a 6-month journey to get here. And so I lived in Philadelphia and grew up there, and that's where we met through my childhood. But one of the things early on that I started discovering about myself, that I would be this kid in class and that have all these different windows that would pop open in my head, and I would it's a really hard time focusing on what was going on in class. So I could be disruptive, or I could just kind of go in my head. And I was called. The teacher called on me. I didn't pay attention. So I get diagnosed with ADD. My parents started taking me to doctors, and this was early on before they added the H. The H came later. This was just the ADD, and they put me on medication.
Oh.
And
how old were you?
I was 14.
Okay.
So I took medication, and it kind of worked, I guess. It helped me to focus, but it took away any feeling out of my life. It was just like a zombie state. And I was hanging out with these older kids. This was in middle school, and there's another one of our friends who passed away. Your mate. Did you know Eugene Lieberman?
No.
Anyway, it was another friend that passed away through addiction and stuff. There was way too many of them in Philly that we knew. But anyway, so we got together, a bunch of these older kids who's 1 year older than me, said, do you want to smoke a cigarette? And I just started dabbling in cigarettes. I'm like, yeah, for sure. So they had one cigarette, which I should have known something was up. They passed around a cigarette, and they gave me
magic
a cigarette. I took a drag and I inhaled and coughed a little bit. And I was like, this doesn't taste like a cigarette that I tried before. They passed around again, and I took another hit or a drag, and they're laughing at me. Like, what's up? They're like, oh, you're smoking weed. So they stuffed the cigarette with weed.
Oh, okay.
But I went back to class, and the windows in my head started narrowing. I'm like, this is interesting. So long story short, I started using cannabis. Not the easiest thing to find back in Philly, but this was I gave up all the other medicine. That was my medicine to go to. And my parents would catch me, and as I got older, I didn't really know it was medicine. I would just smoke weed with friends for fun, but it really did have a different effect on me than I thought it did for other people.
Yeah.
And my parents would kick me out, and they would catch me. And then what happened was I fake ID in a very early age, so I would go out clubbing.
Not me.
And then we would come back, in the middle of the night, whatever. And then sometimes we go fishing. So we go fishing at night. We went fishing, and I came home, and I was and my dad told me last time, he was like, all right, you're gonna do these drugs, just don't bring them in the house. I was like, okay, fair enough.
He's negotiating.
Yeah, he's negotiating. So I'm like 17, 18, just around 18, go fishing and come back. I wake up in the afternoon because it was, slept all day. And I come back downstairs. My parents have my pouch on their kitchen table. And the pouch I kept in the car, that my bowl, my cannabis and all this stuff in it. And there's like, what are we gonna do with you? There's nothing to do with me. I'm not doing anything wrong. Like, we should just call the cops and have it. So they did. So my parents actually called the cops on me, tried to have me arrested. These two women, female cops came over and they started threatening me. I'm like, misdemeanor, I'll get out my own recognizance, go do whatever you want to do. He's like, he's a smart ass. I'm like, I don't know if I'm a smart ass, I just know the law. So she's like, if it was my son, I would just kick him the curb. Wow. And my dad told me after they left, hey, you got 5 minutes, pack your shit and go. So my dad physically kicked me out of the door. And the irony of this is that my parents both consume different cannabis types of products that we develop now for their aches and pains. And so it kind of came full circle.
What age were you? Sorry, what age were you when your parents kicked you out of the house?
Just about 18.
18. Wow.
Just getting ready for college, and had to sort of make my own way. And I was lucky. I was dating this girl, and she let me crash her house. And the parents told me I have to go. Then I was couch surfing at different friends' houses, and then I'm a big music guy, if you can't tell behind me. But I would go to Tower Records all the time.
On the boulevard.
Work there. And then that's where I was going. Yeah. So I needed a job. And my friend was working cashier. I would buy music there all the time. He's like, well, we have an opening for a cashier. I'm like, all right. So I got a job at Tower Records. And then my grandma, who's now deceased, but she let me crash on her couch. And then she gave me enough money to get a security deposit for my first apartment. So I was working Tower Records till midnight. Then my other friend, John, they had a strip club called the Catwalk, which was on Delaware Avenue, which then became Asylum, then became Evolution.
Yeah. So what was your friend's name?
John Catagnas.
Okay.
And then I was a DJ there for a while. So putting on songs. And so I would work and then go to school at Temple University. And that was basically, my story and background. And working Tower Records, got exposed to a bunch of music and started getting tickets to concerts and all this, $7 an hour. But I would help to buy music for the store too. And then I was at this music festival called the Horde Festival. So like Siggy Marley and the Black Crowes. The Black Crowes were headlining. Mm-hmm. And there was this group of kids that were standing there with a sign called the Cannabis Action Network. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Cannabis, what are you guys doing? Like, we're fighting for legalization. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, we're registering people to vote. I'm like, great. What else are you doing? Well, that's it. We have some pamphlets. So I became the president of the Cannabis Action Network. And that became sort of my journey to be an activist for the plant. And I held a rally at Independence Hall in Philly, where the Constitution is, for those of you that know, Declaration of Independence, all written on hemp paper, by the way. Exactly. And exactly. So, and I had my keynote speaker was this woman named Elvie Masika, and she was one of the first people to get federally prescribed cannabis for her degenerative glaucoma. And she had this jar, a metal jar, where it had a USDA label on it. And she opened the jar and pre-rolled cigarettes with cannabis that were grown in Mississippi. And she lit up in front of federal rangers, and that was it. Nobody did anything. And then everybody crashed in my house the next day, and I got woken up to a loud noise. It's like, and I was dating this girl who's an artist, and she made me this big sculpture in my house. And Elvie walked into it and broke it into pieces. And she felt so bad, but she didn't see it. She was completely blind until she medicated with cannabis. When I saw her doing that, it really reconnected with me. I'm like, wait, this is medicine for my ADD and whatever, but this is also medicine for her and her glaucoma. So that kind of started this journey trying to discover the medicinal aspects of the plant.
That's incredible. What year was this in?
94, okay. 93, maybe, something like that.
So then
in the early 90s.
So then after that, what happened after that?
After that, I was dating my ex-wife now, and Tower Records closed down.
Yeah.
and I opened up a music company called Mayday Music. And what I was doing was I was doing hard to find music, like let's say it's a Chili Peppers Japan only release. So I would find them because I still had all these connections to Tower Records, and people will buy them, through my website. But what happened was these distributors started closing down one after the other, so I couldn't fulfill, my sales. So she's like, you have to get a real job. So I put a suit on, got my resume, and applied for work, and I got hired by a company called Price Waterhouse. So I used to have, I know it's hard to believe if you don't see me, I don't have any hair now. I'm follically challenged, but I used to have really long hair.
Yeah, I remember.
So I used to have long
And
hair.
a ponytail.
Yeah, and that's what I say. Long hair, have these big hoop earrings, have to wear a suit and tie, get my hair back in a ponytail, take out my earrings, and go to work at Price Waterhouse. And every day, like, it would take more of a piece of my soul.
Yeah.
Because this is not my connection. I did that for a while, then went to work for a venture capital company, then went to work for an on-site offshore development company called Cognizant, traveled to India, did all that for a while, then decided to leave that and do real estate. So
I remember that.
So I was at one point I was a commercial real estate broker for this company called Keller Williams, but KW Commercial. So I was the managing director of KW Commercial, the commercial division of Keller Williams. I really thought I loved real estate, but what I really liked was the transactions. So I get a transaction, it's like the hit of heroin, feels really good. And then at the end, like, I would crash again because I didn't feel I was fulfilled. I wasn't doing anything except for making, wealthier people more wealthy with investments and all that, but it didn't really feel good inside. So we were traveling back and forth because my ex she was an actor or wanted to be an actor. So we're traveling to LA all the time. And at some point, so let's move. So I said, okay. And, I was a broker, and it's not a reciprocal state in California. So she kept asking me, when are we moving? When are we moving? And one day she's like, all right, I'm going. I'm like, okay, go. And she's like, I'm taking Sasha, our daughter, with us. Sasha was probably maybe 4 at that time. Like, no.
And our daughters are the same age, just about.
Yeah. So I'm like, no, you can't take her.
Right.
Going back and forth, a lot of fighting. And then she said, what if I get my mom to go? And her mom is married. She has another kid who's younger, and husband, and everything else. I was like, yeah, I mean, she'll babysit it. If you get your mom to go, okay. And a few weeks went by. She's like, mom said yes. She called my bluff. It's like, oh, shit. So I ended up flying over, getting a place, getting a car. It's just ridiculous. And I moved them to LA, and I was going back and forth. Once a month. Yeah, it was Sasha was like 5, and I was going back and forth. I had lived still in Philly, and this is going on for months. And then she got a role in a movie in Serbia, and I flew to LA, picked up Sasha, flew back to Philly, and she went, and she was gone for like 6 weeks. And Sasha and I really bonded over that time. She came back. I flew back to LA, dropped her off, and flew back to Philly. And she called me. She's like, "Your daughter misses you. What are you gonna do?" I'm like, fuck everything. And I just put my house up for sale. Started doing garage sales. Negotiated this crazy deal with my partners in my real estate company that I said I was going to come back and forth, and moved, and basically came to LA. And my relationship was not the same. Not that it was great before I left, but it was odd. Something was off. So I can go into details, but I'm joining you all with my story. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So you guys broke up, basically.
Yeah, we broke up. It took us about almost 2 years to get like really divorced, but we broke up, and basically separated, and that's it.
The other day when you were sharing with me, you said that after you'd broken up, that you got an apartment, and you were really in a place of like soul searching, because some of your identity, if not a lot of your identity, was caught up in, being a father and being a husband, and now you were just a father and no longer a husband. Would you mind sharing about that and what that journey was like?
It was numbing. So I didn't know what to do. I really made some of the worst business decisions that I did during that time because I was numb with emotion, depressed, as I look at it now.
Yeah.
And I felt like there was not much. I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't want to do real estate anymore. I had no idea what to do. So I felt paralyzed. Instead of making like new kind of connections, I would sit there and like sit in the mess that I was in, and kept replaying this over and over in my head, and getting more and more depressed and trying to figure it out. So at one point, I started watching. I was always into personal development, and I started watching like Tony Robbins videos again, and maybe I can get inspired by that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go to, I think it was Unleash the Power Within. He was coming to LA, and I went, and I was just like, yes, I was re-energized again, and wanted to really work. And I got coaching with Tony Robbins Institute, Anthony Robbins Institute, and then got certified as a coach there, and said, I'm going to start working and giving back to people. But the thing that really, I think, inspired me more than that is when I was helping my buddy go through his divorce. I don't even know what I was talking about, but just sharing experiences. And then he said it really helped him. He's like, help my cousin out. So I kind of did it as well. And then he's like, you should do this as a group. And I'm like, who's gonna listen to me? And where am I going to have it? I start creating obstacles for myself.
Right.
All the reasons why I shouldn't do this. Why not? And he's like, you have it in my place. He had a big place. And he's like, let's just do a meetup. So I did a meetup, and it was for a men's only group, because we were looking for a men's support group for divorce, and we couldn't find any.
No.
And we did this
Everything
group.
is female.
It's all for females. And then it was a male, divorce group. I called it Rebuilding Your Life After the Divorce.
Yeah.
So 4 people showed up. There was 5 of us. And I was really like, this is how 2 minutes to speak and like pass the thing. It was really stringent. I had no idea how to run a group.
Right.
And I thought it was pretty good, but not as good as it could be. And then they started getting emails from women on Meetup. So is this for men only, or can women come? And I said, yeah. So I opened it up and ended up doing it for 4 years. We had like around 800 people that came through, and we would meet every other week, and we made a difference in people's lives. And I really feel this was my therapy. So going through, listening to other people's stories and giving myself to that and just being present in that really was exactly what I needed to get past that and overcome. And all these little things, like all the experience you have in life, Price Waterhouse, music, real estate, all that culminated in now what I do, and how I even got into cannabis space was through real estate initially. My connections were for real estate because these people wanted to open up a alternative pharmacy. And I helped them get all their licensing in place, everything, and they offered me a partnership. So I became a partner and was an owner and operator of 5 dispensaries at one point. So that was kind of my re-entry back in the cannabis space.
It's really an amazing story. And how many years ago did you start the coaching? 10 years?
Personally, like
The
me coaching
800
people?
Yeah, the 800 people in those groups.
Yeah, this was,
10 years
so
ago?
I'm divorced 10 years. Yeah, so I'm divorced 10 years. It's 10 years ago, yeah.
Right. And what you said, I think, is key. And what's really interesting about that is the statistic is that 80% of all divorces are initially initiated by the woman in the relationship, the wife. And yet there's more support around the person or the gender of the people that initiate the breakup. Why do you suppose that is?
I think men don't deal well with their emotions, and it's very difficult for men to, go outside of their immediate circle to talk about what's going on. So there's no safe container for men. And we were always taught society, you don't deal with emotions, you deal with it in a different way. So a lot of guys I knew, they would start drinking, they get into drugs, numb. They don't want to deal with things. So, and it's much easier for women to share that. So, they're seeking that. I don't think men seek that, or at least the perception is that they don't seek that. But if you have a safe space, I think men will be very happy to speak to other men. That's why I do men's work as well. There's a certain trust that you can talk to your brothers about, that you can share just about anything. And I just don't think that there's the perception there of that being available.
I think so much of what that's also turned into is the manosphere. Programs like Fresh and Fit, Coach Greg Adams, and I've listened to all these programs. I think they're really great. But I think they just give a bit of too much of a one-sided view of just only the man's perspective and not the woman's perspective. And part of what our podcast is committed to doing is giving all perspectives on everything, whether they're male or female. And moreover, I'm really in this space right now of like trying to unite the divine masculine to the divine feminine. How do you feel about that?
It's all one. We're all connected.
Yeah.
So the energies, the masculine energies and the feminine energies flow through every human being.
Yeah.
And you can connect on that level with anyone. You just have to be open to that. And I think that day to day, we create these obstacles for ourselves to block those energies. And some of this perception from the outside. Oh, you got to be more masculine. Like here's the thing. I had therapy too. I was going through, we were trying to do like couples therapy, and she didn't like the shrink. So I ended up going to him for myself. And one of the things he challenged me is like, hey, would you be open to bringing in your parents? My parents did not believe in therapy at all, but I asked them for myself. And after my parents kicked me out, we didn't speak for a couple of years. Now I speak to them every single day now. So, but this was my aha moment in therapy. So I went to my parents and said, all right, for you, we'll go. And the scene was this. So I'm sitting on one side next to the therapist. My dad and my mom are sitting across from us. And my dad's being sort of abrasive in his way. And the therapist's name was Les. And he asked him, he kept asking him about, Len growing up. He goes, you really want to know about Len? Let me tell you a story. And I didn't remember this until my dad started telling me. So this was in Lithuania under Soviet Union control. I guess we lived in this building, and there was a little street in the back, and there was a store behind that. So I walked with my mom across this little street, went to the store, asked her to buy me something. She wouldn't buy it, so I had to fit in the store, and ended up somehow walking out of the store and going by myself across the street to my neighbor's house, who used to watch me all the time. So my mom was trying to find me, and the woman in the store said, he went over there. So she said she knew where to find me. She ran over, got me. She said, wait till your dad gets home. So my dad tells a story that when he got home, it was time for my punishment. So it was time for my beating as my punishment. I don't remember if it was a belt. I think it was a belt, usually it was. And then he said, I kept hitting Len and he wouldn't cry. I would hit him harder and he wouldn't cry. So that's the man Len is. And at that point of him describing this, and I'm seeing this, and I didn't know, and I started seeing little snippets of images from that, because now I started remembering little bits and pieces, but I was probably like 4, 3, some of that. And I started crying in therapy. And I was like, man, this is what you did. You try to beat out the emotion in me. And I lived my life not trying to show that. And now I'm no longer doing that. And the power that he had over me kind of went away. Mm-hmm. And this whole anger towards him. And I had a conversation afterwards, and he's like, there was no book written. I did my best. I'm sorry if I messed up, but this is what I did. This is the best that I did and the best I could do. Yeah. And it all went away. And I was harboring all this anger and resentment. But the only person I was hurting was me.
Yeah.
And I was able to give that up. And I think it lightened me 100-fold.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful.
It's
That's really neat.
fascinating. Yeah, it's fascinating how you share that because it was a pattern, right? When you were a child, that happened. And so after that moment, yeah, you were technically reacting the same way, being numb to the situation, so you didn't show your emotions. And that show up, I can imagine, everywhere in your life. Your relationship.
Relationships, I mean, if look, every relationship, both people are accountable. Even if you have 1% accountability for whatever it is, you're accountable.
Yeah.
So for me, looking back, one of my biggest challenges was that vulnerability and emotion. If we wouldn't, I didn't know how to show affection. We didn't really do that in my house. So affection was, if we're hugging and kissing, I mean, oh, that's going to lead to sex. I didn't realize that you can just be affectionate and hug and kiss and just show that. So, that was one of the learning experiences that I had. I have to be comfortable with my own emotions, my own vulnerabilities, and to have those displays of affection. Having a daughter really, really helped, because that's, there's so much feminine energy and the affection and different things than, having, if I had a boy first, maybe it would have been different. But that definitely helped me to be much more comfortable with my own emotions.
Yeah. In that moment, and in therapy, what opened up for you with your relationship with your ex-wife and with your daughter? What opened up for you?
What was offered?
What opened up for you in therapy?
Oh, what opened up?
Yes.
Just that feeling of, I guess, feelings, right? So I was always, I thought that being a good partner means that you're a good provider.
Yeah.
You have to work your ass off. You have to make sure that food's on the table. I'm supporting you in your career. You're not working. I'm doing everything. I'm taking care of the family. I'm doing everything.
Yeah.
But there's a missing element to that, which is that, I'm not being present and listening and participating in those instances where. And also the other thing is, I'm very big on, let's take action. Tell me what your issue is. Let me see what I can do to fix it. And sometimes I don't have to fix anything. I'm there just to listen and take in. So I think those lessons still work in progress. I still have to get, sometimes I revert back, but at least I'm aware of it now.
Yeah, that's really.
So much of our masculinity, is rooted in fixing, protecting, defending, and unless we're doing those things, and they occur for us, we have to do this and we have to do that. And so we burden ourselves thinking that this is the right thing to do all the time, when in fact, sometimes our partners, they just want to be heard.
Yeah.
And nothing else. And everything else we add we add meaning to whatever they're saying, for ourselves from our point of view, when in fact they just want to be heard and they want to be understood and gotten. Can you say more about that?
100%. I think there's a difference between being a searcher and a seeker. And there's some people who are searching something, and I'm really seeking something. So if something doesn't align with me or makes me feel, or I react to a situation, and I used to point a finger, this is on you, you're causing this. But now I try to see what is in me that's being triggered that I have to address it myself so I can respond and not react to the situation. So first, it was a lot of Tony Robbins type of work.
Yeah.
And I did all the Tony Robbins stuff. And then, and then it's seeking other things like, there's plant medicine. There are vibrational type of, Joe Dispenza type of work that I'm looking into and connecting to that. So, tonight, I'm grateful that I live in LA, and I know people are like, it's LA, it's Hollywood, but I don't subscribe to that part. It's all the spiritual stuff. So I can go almost any day. Like tonight, there's a breath work and a meditation and a sound bath and Malibu on the beach and the ocean. Like this is the kind of stuff that
That's
you
awesome.
need to reset. And
Yeah.
I wish everybody has access to these kinds of things. So being able to connect and seek and know that you're not perfect, you're gonna take a step back, you're gonna learn, but just be aware and be
Yeah.
open to receiving those kind of things.
Yeah, one of the people I really like to listen to a lot is a nice Jewish boy named Ram Dass. Are you familiar with Ram Dass?
I am familiar with Ram Dass.
Yeah,
I know all the, so these are the LA, we call them Rasta Jews, even though they're not.
Rasta Jews. I've seen them
even though they're not, but it's all the Ram Dass. So my friend Bruce Margolin is an attorney. He was part of their whole crew and went over to help him transition in Hawaii. So
yeah, when he passed away. Yeah. They call it dropping the body. Yeah. So one of the things he talks about a lot is how we get stuck in our method. Meaning, like, for example, if you're a Christian, you get stuck in your method of Christianity and you become rigid. Or if you're a yogi, you become rigid in that. Or if you do Landmark, or if you do Tony Robbins, you get so committed to it, you think it's the be all end all. And all those things are valuable, and they all have missing components. And I like to practice the MMA of transformation, because when you're in the ring or you're in the cage, does it matter whether you win the fight using a kick or a punch, or anything else? No, it doesn't matter. Or a choke? No, just use whatever's useful and get rid of whatever doesn't work. And that's, ever since I was a kid, Bruce Lee has been my hero because of that, because that was his philosophy in life. You share a little bit about that?
100%. It's having, so we talked about previously Kabbalah, right? So that's one of the things when I was going through, I didn't talk about it when I was going through my story, but that was something I'm not really a religious person. I don't go to, I'm Jewish, but I don't go, I'm a tattoo Jew, so you're not even supposed to have that. So
Never heard that.
I'm a tattoo Jew. That's a t-shirt right there.
There you go, tattoo Jew.
Tattoo Jew.
So,
you know what? That might be the good name for the podcast. But I don't know tattoos.
The tattoo Jew. So I didn't really like religion. The whole thing was really not my cup of tea. I really didn't connect to it.
Yeah.
I didn't understand the separation, why women sit separate from men, all that. It didn't make any sense to me. So I never connected to the Orthodox part. But I went out with this girl one time and she's like, I'm Orthodox, I get married, and I'm like, all right, it's not really my connection. But she worked at the Kabbalah Center in LA. And she's like, you should come. I'm like, I don't know, religion. She goes, no, it's not really religion, it's spiritual practice. Okay. I'm like, you know what? I'm open. Let's go and receive. And then I connected to Kabbalah. I did all, Kabbalah 1, 2, and 3. Not everything. There was a lot of things that are these stories about a man who lives in a cave for 400 years. And I'm like, okay, great. Where's the evidence of that? But there's so many different nuances that it actually taught me this. And this whole proactive formula, and sort of, I mentioned not reacting to situations, taking a beat and responding to it and asking, why am I feeling what I'm feeling that I want to react? Just that little beat changes so much. Not perfect. I yelled at my daughter this morning where I probably, could have responded better. So I reverted to that as well. But, going through that practice and understanding, you have all these tools. So as you were saying, and Bruce Lee, everything. So I have Tony Robbins, I have myself, I have Kabbalah, I have plant medicine, like, doing cannabis, DMT, psilocybin, all these different things. They're all different things that you can use. And it's not one thing, it's different things. And meditation, I did, I went to Transcendental Meditation. So I did TM, I've done that for years. Does it always work for me? No. Sometimes I want to listen to, vibrational meditation that plays a certain frequency that connects to me. So maybe it's my ADD too, that I want to do a whole bunch of different things all the time, but you're absolutely right. It doesn't matter which technique you use, and there's not one better or worse. It's what do you want to use in the moment that connects to you, and being a seeker and trying to find new things, you just add them to your portfolio, and hopefully they'll show up when you need them.
Would you mind sharing some of your plant medicine, or I think we were talking about toad venom experiences, like maybe some of the more profound ones, and like what showed up for you?
I think every experience that you do with a psychedelic is profound. I'm not a believer in what's called a bad trip.
Yeah.
I think every single trip is a journey that you get something out of. Some of them I'm still trying to decipher. I have no idea what it means, what I get out of it. I had my last DMT experience. I did 2 back-to-back because the first one was an extremely frightening experience. I took in the DMT, inhaled, held it, let go, and then I was falling off a ladder that had no bottom, and I see myself trying to grab onto the rungs of the ladder, and I can't, and I'm falling to my death, and it's extremely, extremely fearful and a scary experience. And then, before I hit wherever I was supposed to hit, I came out of it. Maybe it's 10-minute, maybe 15-minute experience, but you have no sense of self or body or time or anything else. So that was my initial experience. And the guy who was, supporting me in my journey, he was like, hey, why are you trying to hold on? Let go. I was like, maybe that's a metaphor. So the second one, I went and I closed my eyes and I just melted. Once again, no sense of self, no sense of time, complete pitch darkness. So I'm a speck in this universe. And as I travel through the universe, I started seeing geometric shapes. Don't know what they are. Like it's a triangle, but it's not a triangle. And they all had these fluorescent like lights around them, like fluorescent orange, fluorescent pink, and all these different, and I didn't see like any characters that people have described, but I saw these shapes and I started traveling through these shapes. And for some reason, like connecting to these shapes really made me feel good. Like it was such a euphoric experience. No idea what it means. That was my last experience.
I mean, I know people that are very close to me that have seen exactly the same thing and had pretty much the same experience or very similar. And I've heard someone say, another name for angels is angles. And a lot of the things that maybe you're experiencing are sacred geometry.
That's what people have told me as well. Yeah. I have no idea. So I'm trying to decipher it. And then
you have to go back to the Kabbalah Center.
I know. If I can draw, actually I can draw. I can paint. I can paint what I saw. So maybe I can make a painting of it, go back to Kabbalah and say, what do you think this is? Sacred geometry. That's interesting. And then I had a couple of pretty intense psilocybin experiences lately. So one of them, like I microdosed.
How many grams?
Yeah, so it's a good question. Yeah. So I microdose with psilocybin. So, taking about 0.5 gram to 1 gram is my microdose. And for me, what it does is like, if you wear glasses to see and you're walking around the day without your glasses, and then all of a sudden you put your glasses on, the colors are sharper, clearer. Yeah. Everything is heightened, that state. That's all microdosing does to me. And, I've done hero's journeys. I've done, up to 7 grams before or more, which is a very intense experience. But in psilocybin, people have to understand that the actual mycelium, the strain of mushroom they use, it produces a different amount of psilocin in your body. So it's not it's one molecule, but it's the type of mushrooms that you consume. So I was at a Shabbat dinner. I'm the only Jewish person, they like to call it Shabbat dinner because every once in a while they have a guy come in, but it's just a dinner with friends.
You're the
And,
honorary Jew,
Yeah, I'm the honorary Jew.
token Jew.
I'm the token Jew that knows nothing. Like, I don't know how to help them. They know more than I do. I don't know how to help them.
Yeah, I have friends like that. Yeah.
Any of that stuff. So we have dinner, and my friend makes mushroom chocolates. And at the end, he's like, hey, we should all microdose a little bit. So every square is half a gram. So, I think everybody took 2 squares. That's 1 gram, or maybe it was half a gram. I don't remember, a quarter of a gram. He goes, you should take 4 because you have, you take it more often than anybody else here. Okay. So I took that, and all of a sudden I had liftoff. I went on a journey. I was supposed to drive and pick up my daughter, and I was just not. I am off on a journey. And then the guy he used to be a professional basketball player for, he's Lithuanian. He used to play for France. They won a championship. Tall guy, and he grew his hair long. And he came out in a robe. So he looked like Jesus to me. And he's a scary Jesus with horns going out. And I'm like, what the hell is this, man? And he's talking to me, and I am like, I am off on this journey. And then my stomach started hurting for some reason. And he's like, lay down, and he put a bowl on my stomach and he started hitting the bowl and that made it worse. And then he gave me ketamine. He's like, ketamine will help. And I don't know. So he actually gave me ketamine. So I inhaled some ketamine, or like sniffed some ketamine as I'm going through this. Nothing was working, and for obvious reasons, because when you're in psilocin, like alcohol, nothing works. That is, you have to go with the journey.
Yeah.
And somehow I had to leave, and I'm like, you okay to drive? I'm like, I'll be fine. I opened my windows, got home, got my daughter home. It wasn't that far, so it was okay. But something possessed me to do a headstand. And I don't even know why, but I did a headstand. I was there for like 10, maybe 15 minutes standing my head. And that's the only time that sort of, I got that equilibrium back, and I got centered again, and it started coming down. So next day, or whatever days, I'm like, yo, man, what's the deal? I took the same amount as I did before.
Yeah.
I'm like, what did you use? Because last time he used something called golden teachers, which are a mushroom that has X amount of psilocybin in it. These are what's called albino penis envy, and they're a much much stronger strain. So if you're taking a microdose of half a gram, you have to make sure what is the strain of mycelium mushroom that you're taking. And this was a lot more psilocin that was going in my body.
You took God the Father mushroom.
Exactly.
Penis mushroom.
Penis envy. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was an intense experience, but yeah.
Did you have visuals on it?
So this one, only when I was looking, I had visuals, but it wasn't the type of, I've had visuals before where, rainbow and all these, this was not like that. It was the visuals that I started seeing people's faces morph, but it was very, it was another scary experience. Like I was looking at him as evil Jesus, and he was scary.
If there's a good Jesus, there's got to be an evil Jesus, right?
I'm sure.
Yin and yang.
Exactly.
So, there's a lot of people, I'm not sure if there are listeners, but there's a lot of people out there that have, and I was one of them, to be honest with you, that have a lot of judgment around, the possibility of entheogens or hallucinogens. What's your point of view about that? Or what was it before, and what is it now?
I was always open to plant medicine, and I mean, doing mushrooms. Mushrooms were my first entry, I think, and I was probably 18, 19 when I did mushrooms. If you're not setting an intention, you're not sure where you want to go with your journey. And if you're doing I have no issues with any drugs. Anybody who wants to do anything, pharmaceuticals are drugs, anything is a drug. Sugar is a drug. Alcohol. Caffeine is a drug, right?
Sex.
So I have no issue. Right. Anybody can do whatever they want. They're free to do that. But for me, if I'm taking plant medicine, I treat it with respect now. And when I wasn't treating with respect, I had great experiences, but there are recreational experiences that I didn't understand how the journey can help me with certain things. So now It's setting intentions. Hey, listen, man, one time, here's a funny story. One time, this guy that we know through our friend Ray brought up a bunch of mushrooms from like Penn State. They went cow tipping. They had all these mushrooms. They didn't know what to do with them. So they brought them to me. I had a big bag, and they wanted me to help them dry them out and then sell them for them. So I did. But at the end, I had all this shake. So I had a ton of shake from these mushrooms. So I invited all these people over, and we had a weekend long mushroom party. We brewed mushroom tea and barbecue and everything with mushrooms.
Very creative.
And it was a super intense experience.
You had your own Christmas.
Oh, it was all the colors. And I ended up driving to Revival. And I drove, and all the headlights are coming at me in different colors. And I don't know. And then we went in Revival, and we started drinking. And we ran
I was
out
probably
of money.
there that night.
You may have been there that
You
night.
don't even
Most
know.
most likely you were. But we're drinking, and we ran out of money because we weren't getting drunk. We didn't know. We're drinking, and then went outside, and I started an argument, a fighting with my friend Bill. I thought he was spitting on me. I'm like, you got to stop spitting on me. And it was raining. It was drizzling, and I didn't realize that. So it was just a weird experience. Went back, and like, it was fun. We had fun experiences, but it's not like I didn't do it with any intention, and it wasn't the therapeutic journey that I would do it with now, which is what you usually set an intention and try to
irresponsibly. I remember one night I was out and I was partying here in Philly, and you're still living here, and I was wearing like this really loud shirt. And, we're like, I don't give a shit, like, what anybody thinks. If you don't like my shirt, whatever. I was wearing like a leather jacket, and I'd done some Molly that night, right? And I had a little bit to drink, and you walked outside the club with me, and you had some weed, and I had never smoked weed while on Molly, while drunk. And we walked to the car, and by the time we walked back into the club, my wife was like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, I was so paranoid. I was like, why is everybody looking at my shirt?
Yeah, for sure. I think I even remember that whole thing. But this is one of the reasons why we do what we do with our DNA testing, with the endoDNA. Some people have these predispositions to stress reactivity, to anxiety with cannabis and with other things. And THC, when you consume it, it's a vasodilator. So it dilates your blood vessels, your heart pumps faster. But if you're prone to stress reactivity, and some people are, and you consume something that doesn't align with you, because it's not all cannabis is different, it can actually trigger those anxiety markers, and you can start feeling anxious and as you said, paranoid.
Right. So for our listeners, say more about the company that you're created now, because you were sharing with me that what you do is you do a DNA test or a blood test. How does this work, and what are the benefits? What can you use
so the name of the company is EndoCanna Health. It's endoDNA is our test on our website. So the way it's designed is to look at every single gene that's directly or indirectly associated with the endocannabinoid system. The endocannabinoid system is our primary modulating system. So what it does, its job is to maintain homeostasis or balance within our bodies. And the way that it does that, it gets signals from all the other systems within our bodies, sends them upstream like salmon into the brain, and then it makes a decision which neurochemicals to excrete, so to help those systems maintain balance. And the two that the endocannabinoid system uses are called endogenous within endocannabinoids. So one of them is called anandamide. The word anand means bliss in Sanskrit. Mm-hmm. And the other one is called 2-AG. And 2-AG is more aligned with your immune and digestive systems in your body. So one is brain, one is body. So when we consume drugs in general, and I think people get really confused about drug use. They think it's the drug, but it's not the drug that's creating the experience. It's our own neurochemicals, where receptors in our bodies. So like cocaine. I'll give an example of cocaine. We consume cocaine.
Where?
It binds it binds to your dopamine receptors,
Yeah.
and it actually excretes 100 times more dopamine than we would do naturally, and then it blocks the reuptake of that dopamine. So we have it going for a while, and then it drops, and our brain's like, wait a second, I don't have to create my own dopamine. I can get it from something else. Give me more.
That's why people get addicted. They start chasing it.
Right. So dopamine is addictive, not necessarily the cocaine itself. So in cannabis, you have two receptor sites. You have CB1 receptors and CB2 receptors. So CB1 are your brain, your central nervous system. CB2 is your body, your immune, digestive system, etc. So when you consume THC binds to your CB1 receptors and releases anandamide. When you consume CBD binds to your CB2 receptors and releases 2-AG. So if you have the right amounts of phytocannabinoids, it can actually subsidize maybe what you're naturally deficient in. So if you're not producing enough of your own neurochemicals, your endogenous endocannabinoids, you can get them from the plant. However, understanding how much do you take, what is drug-to-drug interaction, what is your metabolic function, what are your predispositions to stress and anxiety or mood or depressive states, all those things we look at through genetics. And the way that we do that is it's a saliva test, buccal swab. So you get your endoDNA test, you kind of do your cheek, you rub your cheek or the inside your mouth with a buccal swab, which is a big Q-tip. You put it back in the tube, you mail it to our lab. We're HIPAA compliant, so you have to, and GDPR, you have to register it. So it's de-identified. So we're not looking to clone you in any way. We're giving you, unless you want to be cloned. That's another business. That's other business that we're starting. But the idea is, or you can take raw data from 23andMe or Ancestry or any other DNA test. That way you don't have to swab. You can just upload, and then we'll give you a report. The report looks at all different types of symptomatic conditions associated with why people consume cannabis for, and your genetics play a role. So anxiety, cognitive function, pain, nausea, sleep, all those different things, and it'll give you a report to show you what is the cannabinoid and terpene, which are the essential oils of the plants, what is the optimal profile for you, then it matches them with certain products based on the certificates of analysis, test results, and tells you geofence, tells you where to get those products. And now we can measure the efficacy of those products, protocols, using not only patient-reported outcome, but also biometric feedback. So like our device, the EndoLink device, or Oura Ring, Fitbit, all those things we can integrate and actually show the efficacy of that formulation. Then we use machine learning to help make better predictive inferences for people.
Amazing.
That's how it works.
That's amazing. So wow, that's and you created this all yourself, or did you have help?
Oh, no. This is, I have way smarter people than me. I come up with the ideas, and then I help, get other people to execute. So we have a team of, scientists and neuroscientists.
Wow.
And we have bioinformatics people that do that. We have a geneticist in place. And then my business partners on the technical side. And, I just do a lot of talking. They do a lot of executing. That's sort of.
So this kind of sounds like a biohack.
Oh, absolutely. It's a biohack. So we just validated whole genome sequencing. So now we can do the full genome. We filed a patent on our mental health test, which is called NeuroDNA. So we're looking at treatment-resistant depression for people, because somewhere around 30% or so of the population that get antidepressants or SSRIs, it's not going to work for them because they have treatment-resistant depression, but they'll still get all the side effects from the SSRIs. So we're trying to mitigate that up front. And then we have a test on the flip side that looks at different psychotropics and what aligns better with the individual based on what's called the binding affinity to their receptors. So these are the GABA receptor binding, these are serotonin, these are oxytocin, these are dopamine. And then we can find what is the right protocol for that person, which is the right psychedelic or psychotropic for those individuals as well.
I recently did a toad venom ceremony a couple of months ago, and I had a very different reaction than I'd say practically anybody I've met so far. And So I started kind of formulating a theory or a hypothesis. And I think maybe you're the perfect person to ask this question to. Do you think it's possible that, just the same way that certain people are like extremely muscular and maybe they have really high testosterone or have low testosterone just for whatever reason naturally, do you think that there's people that have unusually high DMT and have had high DMT like throughout history? Maybe people that are like spiritual leaders or artists, musicians, maybe someone like Bob Marley. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think that everybody's an individual and everything is personalized to the individual. So we all have our own neurochemicals inside and we have all different levels. And I think those levels fluctuate. So when you get a blood test done, the blood test captures a moment in time.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. So if I'm completely scared of getting my blood drawn, even though needles don't bother me. I have tattoos everywhere.
Yeah.
No problem with shots. It's a drawing of the needle. So when I go, for some reason, I don't know what it is, but when I go in to get a blood test, I'm really, I have a lot of anxiety. So
Yeah.
when I went through my results, the doctor was going through them and said, hey, your blood sugar level was a little higher than normal. I believe that's based due to the cortisol release based on your stress.
Sure.
Because if you want to be sure about it, you can wear a glucose monitor, which I did for weeks to monitor. And she's absolutely right. So think about it this way. A moment in time captured that I have high blood sugar, even though I didn't, but it's because something else caused something else, caused something else. So when you go into a ceremony, do you have more DMT than somebody else? In the moment, maybe something else that you did secreted that. Maybe your next experience will be different because you have different levels. So we everything is moving, energy, all these different things inside of us, our neurons are changing all the time.
Sure.
Neurochemistry is changing all the time.
Sure.
So you have predispositions. And this is what I would like people to take away. Your genetic predispositions are genetic predispositions. Yes, you're locked in with certain things in your genes, your eye color, your skin color, your hair color, all these things are turned in the on position. The other things that we are predisposed to based on our genetics, we have the power to turn on and off based on lifestyle.
And
So the way that it works is there is messenger RNA that travels with a message of which proteins to create in a certain time, right? So you have the power. If you don't know your genetic predispositions, you're kind of, you're blind. You're driving with your eyes closed. If you know this, you can take certain action to make sure not to turn certain things on and to make sure that you do want certain things to be turned on. So your lifestyle, your nutrition, your mindset, your level of exercise, all these different things can control your genetic expression, which is called epigenetic.
Yeah. What you're saying almost sounds like this whole thing here is its own contained universe with different parts. Almost like, your arm is the Milky Way and your heart is Saturn and your leg is blah, blah, blah. And just like God or higher consciousness controls the universe, you control this universe based on your level of consciousness and what you do and what you don't do, what you say, what you don't say. That's kind of what it sounds like to me. And there's all this transportation system here too. And that's amazing.
You have a lot more control over yourself than you think that you do. And I think the more that you learn, you were talking about biohacking.
Yeah.
The more that you know about you individually, the better action you can take to be able to to be able to biohack your biological age, what's going on, because we're all different and it changes. And if you say, okay, I'm not the same as I was when I was 30, when I was 20, I'm different. I'm different than I was an hour ago. You're constantly changing. So being able to be aware of those things and saying, you know what, it's not just, and I read all these books and stuff about, just don't do anything, just be, and it's fine. There is a time to just be, but I really think that if I can take proactive action to make myself better than I was yesterday, what can I do to make myself? I'm never going to be like Al. Like, we're different. Yeah, because you have more DMT than the average person. That's why.
Wow.
but I can be the best version of me.
Sure.
And that's the only thing that I can compare myself to.
Sure.
Not to be, Arnold Schwarzenegger or somebody else who has these physical gifts. So you have this vessel that's given to you, and you have all these things inside. What can I do to biohack me so I can be a better version of myself? And that's my journey.
Got it. Beautiful. So how can people find out more about you and your products and your services?
So my website is EndoDNA, ENDODNA.com. I'm Len May. Len May DNA, probably on most social media, Instagram, Twitter. But just Len at EndoDNA.com. Come visit. I speak all over the world. So I'm speaking at the Green Summit. If anybody's in San Diego, it's an amazing event. Nothing to do with cannabis. Steve Wozniak is the keynote. It's a TED Talk, 15-minute kind of style TED Talk thing. So it's going to be super cool.
Awesome. That's amazing. Well, it's always great to talk to you. I was hoping you were going to maybe finish up this interview by telling your Madonna story when you were at the Limelight, because you told that at our friend's funeral.
That's funny, man. It's so many stories like that. It's
know,
so
right?
random. I'll tell you, it's so random because when I was writing my book, I have a book, by the way. It's called Making Cannabis Personal, and I have a podcast called Everything is Personal as well. But when I was writing my book, like, all these stories started popping in my head. I would record, and my memory is weird because I can remember super details. Like, I can remember what somebody was wearing that night. It's like little vignettes of movies.
But not lunch yesterday.
No, I don't remember.
Yeah.
I remember what I just had for lunch today. But so we go to Limelight. I don't remember what year this is.
So for people that don't know what the Limelight is, it was a small church in the middle of Soho, New York City. And it was the epicenter of raves in the United States, when raves came over from mainly London. And that's also a place where what are the name of the kids? The movie Monsters Ball was based on.
Well, Kids was named.
No, but there's something Kids. Okay, and Kids, the movie.
Yeah.
So go so I used to go and hang out there when I was like 16 years old, and I think Len was probably about the same age. For all I know, we probably went there together. So fucking high, go ahead, tell the story. You were in the Limelight.
So there's a documentary on Limelight.
Yeah,
really. See, it's really good. But we go and the Prodigy, the band The Prodigy was playing there that night, and so the Limelight. Every club in New York back before the Giuliani days, you had to stand in line. You get picked to go in.
Yeah.
There's usually, a guy or a girl or a mix of both that's at the door telling you that you're good enough to get in. You're not. So this one night, I was doing this gig for Doers, the Scotch, and I had all these buttons that have flashing lights. So I put the flashing lights in my buttons. So I had these glasses, this crazy hat, and I walk in, I'm flashing. The guy's like, "Hey, how many you got?" So I think I had two others with me. So we got in, Prodigy's playing, it's great. And then there's another guy standing inside behind a velvet rope too, for another room. And I was like, "What's up, man? What's going on there?" It's private event. I'm like,
what year was this?
It's a good question.
Late 80s?
Well, no, this is whenever Vogue was out. So it was
mid to later 80s.
Okay, later 80s. So whenever you can look up whenever Vogue was in Vogue. So that was the time. Okay. And my whole thing with bouncers and everybody was let me get them high. if I can share some weed with them, we make a connection. I used to get in places like that all the time. So I'm like, hey, want to smoke some weed? He's like, yeah, sure. So I, gave him a joint, whatever. He's like, yeah, why don't you go in and take a peek? So I go in, and Madonna's there in the corner. She's there with a couple people, and she's talking and laughing. And then there's two guys, the black dude and the I think he was Puerto Rican. The two guys that were in the Vogue video.
That's Ninja.
There you go. I don't remember, but they were doing a Vogue off, and I was just, holy shit! I cannot believe that I'm privy to this experience of them doing the whole thing. So that's my Limelight Madonna story.
And that was before the video ever came out of Vogue, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you saw something that you weren't supposed to see.
I guess so.
Yeah. And that was like New York in the 80s and 90s, the 70s, just before it became corporate, when it was a lot of artists and
100%.
Fun times.
Great times.
Anyway, I know you got to go. I love you. You're awesome. Hopefully we'll take a road trip out to LA, and maybe we'll do a podcast in person, and we'll hang out.
Love you too, brother.
Awesome.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Gracie.
Gracie.
All right. Take care.